Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sackhoff show and thank you for listening. I am coming to you on a crazy day here in my household. I will get on to you anyway. I'll get to that later. I am so excited for this interview. Stick around after for me responding to comments and questions and for that hindsight that you guys all seem to love. What are we calling it? The sack bag? I don't know. I think the jury's out, but we'll get there. Today's guest is my friend, Troy Baker. I met Troy many years ago on a plane where we were randomly sat next to each other on a flight home, and we just became fast friends. And if you don't know who Troy Baker is, I would be completely shocked if you didn't know his voice. He literally is the voice actor of voice actors. He has been the voice of The Last of Us as Joel. So if you play the game, you hear him. If you watch the show, you see Pedro Pascal. And he actually he had a part in the Last of Us TV show, which I was really excited to hear. We'll talk about some stuff, but he's voiced for he's on Rick and Morty and Naruto. And these are words that I never thought I would say out of my mouth. So I don't quite know what they are, but in Uncharted 4 and literally a million other things. Uncharted 4, not Uncharted 4. You guys, I don't play video games. I'm so sorry. I know what all of these things are. I've just never actually said them out loud before. But I am so excited. And stick around after the show because I've got some crazy exciting news on the personal side that you guys aren't going to want to miss. But I'm going to get out of your way. And here is Troy Baker. Who is it that has the design influence in this house? Because this is fucking extraordinary. Excuse my language.
I will not, under any circumstances, excuse your fucking language. It would be easier if it was just her. The problem is it's both of us. So normally when your partner goes, hey, what do you think of this? They're really just looking for confirmation.
Yeah.
They're not looking for feedback.
No.
I don't know that.
I've learned this.
Yeah, I have not.
I still don't like it.
Even so much as we had this huge discussion. She's turning 40 in May. And so it's a big deal for her. Yeah.
It's a wonderful deal.
I love 40s. 40s are...
How old are you?
40. I'll be 48 in a couple weeks.
Okay.
In 2 weeks. I love my 40s. I feel like I am... It's not that I'm aging like a good wine. I feel like I'm learning more. I'm becoming more activated. I'm becoming more distilled.
Yeah.
And I look at my 20s, I'm just like, oh man, 30s are like, shoot, you thought you knew what you were doing.
40s are you give less shits, but you actually give more shits.
Yeah. You just give more shits in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah.
I think Patton Oswalt was one who said, it was like, here's the main difference between me now in my 40s and me in my 20s. I don't hate any kind of music. Whereas before, I would tell you what kind and why you shouldn't listen to it. So she's got her 40th birthday coming up, and all she wants is a party. She just wants to throw a big party, and she wants it to be, well, not a big party. She wants it to be very... her favorites at 40s. So it's like her favorite people, her favorite food, her favorite music, her favorite things.
I love that.
It's beautiful. I want to help with that. And I have ideas. And so it became this thing where typically we'll either play gin rummy at night after Traveler goes to bed, which is great. This is a new thing we started doing. Or right when we get into bed, it's like, hey, let's just dive into each other. And in conversation.
Yeah.
And also in the carnal sense. But I found myself harboring I'm feeling what am I feeling? And so being able to unpack that in front of her and go, I don't know what I'm feeling right now, but I'm angry or am I disappointed or am I sad? But being able to go, I feel like you've taught me how to be such a good gift giver. And now I don't know what I'm giving you because you're like, don't buy me anything because we're going nuts with this party. So I can't give you something that way. But then I'm not really able to participate in the party. So what would you say I do here? And
what's my purpose?
Yeah, what's my purpose?
Yeah.
And so she got to realize, she's like, okay, I realize that you want to have some agency in this. But just know this, that the life that, you and I, we work our asses off. And we're gone a lot. And when we're not gone, we're here and we're working. So I still am a musician. And I thought that was how I was going to set the world on fires with my music. And then life was like, no. So the beauty of that is that I learned that I could also listen to where I'm probably going to fit in better, the opportunities that were being presented to me, and then also still be able to do the thing that I love without the exigencies of the financial, like having to. I have a lot of friends that are
freedom.
Yeah. To just do it for fun.
Yeah.
Versus a lot of my friends who are touring musicians, and shit got real weird at COVID.
Well, because here's the thing: when you're a kid, when you find something that you love, you do it for fun.
Yeah.
As you get older, you do it to support yourself.
Yeah.
And then it loses its fun.
I agree.
And if you can find a way to allow something to continue to be fun and have it support you, then you're winning. But that is a really, really difficult thing, because you lose, as we get older, we lose our inhibitions. And our inhibitions are what make things so much fun, because they don't matter. We're just having fun.
And I think there's also the factor for me that I was trying to prove to parents, to other people, to myself, that I could do it. And if I didn't do it, if I was a failure, what does that mean? And so letting go of that, to me, was admitting failure. But then I started realizing it's like, no, this is just, look at these doors that are opening up. And I'll never forget, this is a name drop, but my first movie that I did, my first thing that I ever did was we have a mutual friend. I don't know if you know this or not. So here's how I like tripped backwards into this whole career. I was a musician and
in Texas,
in Dallas.
Yeah.
And I had a friend of mine that was also in the music scene, because we were a kingdom of 3 streets, and that we were ruled by it. And it was Elm, Main, and Commerce. And if you live in Dallas, and you especially lived there in the 90s, early 2000s, like, that was the music scene. It was, you went between Curtain Club, Club Clearview, and Trees. And those were the 3 spots that you were just always seeing live music at. And it was this cool time. It was dangerous, but it was still safe. You could walk the streets, and there was just this little empire of 3 streets. And my friend at the same, he was also an incredible musician, but he was also working for this video game company. He was like, "Hey, we need a guy to come be in our thing. You got a cool voice. You want to be our guy?" So I was like, "Sure." Funny. So I went to their office on the weekend. They threw a mic cable over the ceiling tiles into the machine room, turned off the computers, and we recorded all of our VO in this closet.
Yeah.
And it's a game called Brothers in Arms. And I was the lead in that. They ended up needing to use me for the spot for the national commercial. And I was like, I know that there's money in that. I don't know how to negotiate that. So I got an agent. And then she was like, do you want to do more stuff besides this voice thing? I was like, yeah. So she goes, they're casting for this pilot down in Houston. And I went, okay. And I drove down, barely had enough money to make it there and back. And I looked and I saw they had already, you ever walk into the thing and they already have like the poster up of like all the people that are already in there?
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. It was Bruce McGill was on there, and Lou Diamond Phillips. And so I went, oh, dude, I love Young Guns. Like
What year was this?
This was 2003, 2004.
Okay.
Actually, probably 2004, 2005.
Okay.
So I get this pilot, never goes, but I've built this friendship with Lou Diamond.
Who's also from Texas.
Who's also from Texas. And he just, for whatever reason, just takes me under his wing. And we have this great hang. And I auditioned for this independent movie that was sure to. And I didn't know he was the number 1 on it. And so he tells the director, he's like, hey, I just worked with this kid, just hire him. And so I walked into the audition, it was mine to lose.
Yeah.
So all these doors start opening up, and then I get this Western that shoots out in Santa Fe for 3 months. And long story medium, in the process of doing that movie, I form a bond and friendship with Steve Zahn, Carl Urban.
Yep.
And then also...
Oh, you were in Comanche Moon.
Yeah, it was Comanche Moon.
Yeah.
And then Val Kilmer. And so Val and I hit it up. Music was our common ground. And he goes, come out, stay with me in my house in Malibu. There's some meetings that were opening up because of this movie. He was like, come out and stay with me, and you'll know if you need to be here or not. And I'll never forget, we're out on the beach, and he was staying at this house in the Colony, and the sun had set. And even after working with him, it's still Val Kilmer, right?
Val is one of my favorite actors of all time.
Yeah.
As many people probably say this, that like he is a person that inspired work ethic in just his performance. I don't even know what his process is. I just like,
visceral.
Based on his performances, I was like, oh, that's work. That person's putting in work.
Yeah. And there's a level of him that's in some ways quasi Gary Oldman, to where he can play Jim Morrison and disappear behind that role, but then he can also be hilarious in Real Genius, or he can be an absolute douchebag in Top Gun, or he can be this charming spy in The Saint. It's like you can't pin him down.
No.
Intentionally giving himself the scar to make him just a little less good looking in Heat. It's like, man, he was an actor's actor.
Yes, 100%.
And so I'm there on the beach, and the sun has set, and so he's no longer Val Kilmer. There's just a silhouette of this dude. And same for me. I could be anybody, and we just pour into each other. And I was like, man, I don't know what to do. And he says, man, there's just some doors that when they open, if you don't walk through them, it's disrespectful. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. That was like in July. I'll never forget, because it was in July of 2006. I realized that I'd hastily gotten married to someone that we both shouldn't have gotten married to each other. And it was very apparent that it was ending rapidly. And I had just wrapped on Comanche Moon, and it's like July 4th, and I'm walking around Rodeo Drive, and I'm just like aimless. I have no idea where I was like, what? I can't do anything here. I don't have any money to be here. Why am I here? I'm a tourist in this city. I'm homeless, essentially. I don't know what I'm doing. And my phone rings, and it's Carl Urban. And he goes, hey, what are you doing? And I just break. And I was like, dude, you have no idea how badly I needed to hear from you. And he was like, something just told me I needed to call you. And this was like this really transitional part of my life, because there was this idea of myself of like, being a musician. This acting thing was on the side. If I was going to be an actor, I was going to, quote, break out of Texas. Meaning I was never going to really try and, fail and have to come back and prove everybody right that I wasn't this actor. I wasn't this artist. I needed to settle down and get a real job. And I was like, what am I doing here? And that conversation with Val, that conversation with Carl is like, what am I afraid of? And what is so wrong with failing? What does that mean? At least I will have tried. Marriage fell apart. I packed everything that I had into, didn't even fill up a 5x8 trailer, which was the smallest size that I could rent.
I think that's the smallest they have to rent.
They're like,
no, they have a 4x something.
But they won't let you take it out of state was the main thing. So they're like, you don't have more stuff? I'm like, I really don't, dude. So
this guy can't even pay for the gas to get it where he's going.
I drove from Dallas to Los Angeles, and I stopped off at Val's Ranch on the way. And along the way, I was with a friend of mine named Josh Good, and I'll always be grateful for him because he introduced me to so much music. Like, he introduced me to someone who's become a friend now, Jamie Cullum, who's this amazing. You can't pin him down to just jazz, but he's an incredible pianist as well as vocalist, songwriter. His lyrics make me angry. They're so good. That John Mayer record, Continuum, had just come out. So that I always associate with driving in my 2001 Dodge Durango with a 5x8 behind me, and Josh Good, and nothing but open road and desert on either side. And I don't know if you have those albums for you that are like, this is the soundtrack to this time in my life.
Many.
What would be yours?
Many. Chicago.
Which one? The best of, or just like?
Probably best of, because I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I found a lot of bands in high school, because my parents, I didn't grow up in a music house. I grew up in a house that was filled with music because my dad played piano by ear. So my dad always had music on, but it was not contemporary music. And so I had to search out music that moved me.
Do you have now a version for like classical music or orchestral or what would be considered repertoire?
No,
Do you love it, or do you like associate that with him, or?
it's never something that I felt pulled to ever.
Cool.
And yeah, you know, it's funny. I was putting together a playlist for the podcast of just motivational music and music that sort of like was the tone of what this show is. And it is a love letter to the music that has moved me throughout my life. A lot of Tom Petty,
Interesting.
a lot of Wildflowers, a lot of Bruce Springsteen,
Okay.
a lot of country, Dolly Parton.
All of these seem very anachronistic for you, though, because like when I think about Tom Petty, I guess aside from
Bob Seger.
this is all anachronistic for you, though. You had to reach back for those albums.
I did.
So what prompted that? Like, I found these far too late in life. Like, I found them in my late 20s and early 30s.
Me too. Me too.
So what was it for you?
I never felt spoken to with current music. Maybe a bit of Nirvana, for sure, growing up in the 90s in Oregon. But I never felt seen by the stories and music that was current. I listened to music from the past, like music from the 80s and the 90s. And I go, oh, that's a story that resonates. Even if it's about a man who is looking back on his youth, talking about that he used to be a rock.
Yeah.
I identify with that in a weird way.
Growing up, what was considered, quote, secular music, I was not allowed to listen to, which was very confusing when my parents would be like, but we can listen to what was contemporaneous for us growing up. So Beatles, Stones, Mamas and the Papas, that was all okay.
Yeah.
But the music that was contemporary for me somehow was bad.
Yeah. I see that. I see that as a parent for sure.
I mean, trust me, like, I don't necessarily want Traveler listening to Wet Ass Pussy right now, right?
Yeah.
So I get the
Time and place.
dude. Right, first of all. But there's also, so the school that he goes to, their disciplinary action is called, did you get a tap? And if you get one tap, it means, hey, there's like a warning, then there's a tap, and then there's, up to 2 tap, 3 tap, 4 taps. And so, like, he's always very proud. He's like, I didn't get any taps today.
Is that like getting your name on the chalkboard when you're in school?
Essentially.
Yeah. With a check mark.
With a check mark.
Yeah.
Dude.
That was me.
You couldn't take my name off.
Nope.
Just write it in permanent mark. It's going to be up there.
In 3rd grade, I had more check marks than any other student in the entire school. And my mom was like, well, I'm actually kind of proud.
That was not my parents' response. My parents' response was they just wanted to go 1 week without getting a call from the school.
Really?
I made a principal cry, Miss Avery. She's probably long dead by now. But I remember, because I grew up in the time where you got licks, right?
Yeah, you're a little older than me.
So you would get pops. Like, they literally had the paddle with the holes drilled in it so that the air could move through it quicker.
Really?
To this, I mean, if a principal was like, well, we do corporal punishment. I was like, tell you what, if you pick that up, I'm picking up mine.
Yeah.
And if you can get through me,
then you can touch my kid.
You can touch my kid.
Yeah.
No, it never happened.
No, that would never happen.
I don't understand that mentality. But this tap thing, I finally realized it meant TAP, time and place. So it's not what I don't want to instill in Traveler is that laughing or running around or being wild is, and that's what we always say to him, be wild and be safe. That's the only 2 things you have to do. But like, there's a time and a place for that.
Yes.
Sitting on the mat when we're reading is not the time and a place for that. So when you say time and place, I'm like, man, that is really resonating with me right now. But like, for me, going back to the music thing, I had to seek out, I kind of like subterfuge the music that would move me.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with a lot of Christian metal, Christian rock. And so people can tell you all about certain bands that were, hot in the late 80s and early 90s. I'm like, yeah, but did you ever listen to DC Talk? Because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
Or I would reach back even further and go to like the 1780s or the 1890s. And I was reaching back to Beethoven and Mozart because that music moved me.
Interesting.
And it was safe ground. My parents couldn't be like, you don't listen to that.
There's
I was like,
no words.
Yeah, but they consider this pornographic, when it came out.
Yeah.
There's this dude named Alex O'Connor, is really, really switched on British kid, and he's a podcaster, YouTuber, whatever. And he talks about everyone's heard Beethoven's Fifth. He's like, but if you imagine in that time, the only way that you heard music was either if you played it, if you walked down the street and happened to hear someone playing it, or you bought a ticket, went to a hall, and sat down with your friends. And if that's the case, you're there, and all of a sudden, for the first time in history, you hear this orchestra go, dun, 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 dun. He goes, it would have blown your fucking mind.
Yeah.
And I forget.
Because that was not something that was afforded to most people.
You had to be rich to go to that.
Yeah.
And I want to have this, I don't know where my record player is. The other thing is out there. But Rick Rubin's I've been digging into his stuff lately, and he talks about how our relation, that the way that we wrote music changed. We can get into AI, because technology has always forced art to create differently. And music is a perfect example of that. When we no longer had to fit music on 22 minutes per side, when we went from vinyl to cassette, cassette you could get 30.
Yeah. Then you went to CD.
Then went to CD where you go 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 72 minutes. And now streaming.
Digital, yeah.
You didn't have just 4 tracks of music. You could and really 3, you had to bounce one down, or 8 tracks, or 16. You have unlimited. And so we're making music in ways that we never would have made them before. Artists are kind of going back to the old model of dropping a single as opposed to dropping an album. And there's a different relationship that both the artist has with the medium and we as the consumer has with the medium. And it brings me some comfort, because there is this, I literally sat across from Duncan Crabtree, who's the head of the negotiating committee, and we had a real talk about what this means, what AI means for video games. And I was like, dude, I do not mean to not say that it does not have an existential threat. It is an existential threat in the very same way, to a different degree, but there is a commonality between AI to current media is in some ways similar to what the film camera was to the actor on stage.
Well, we always fear what we don't know.
Yes, and there's a lot unknown about AI.
Yeah, but our industry is always changing.
Yeah.
I remember when we moved to digital and from film, Battlestar was on film.
Really?
Moved to digital. And
Halfway
I remember,
through?
I don't remember, but I do remember when we started making fun of the fact that you didn't check a gate anymore.
Yeah.
Meaning that
it just became like a check the gate.
It became a check the gate, guys, we're moving on. And I remember that people were a little scared of that because they were, the day was contained on tape.
Yeah.
You had a finite amount that you could fit.
Yeah.
So you couldn't just go.
Right.
And there was such a freedom to just going.
Sure.
And allowing a take instead of 2 minutes, take 8 minutes.
Sure.
Because it didn't matter. It was just space on a card. And those are everywhere. You can go CVS. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're not wrong.
So everyone fears change.
But there is something about, it's like the difference, my wife's a photographer, and the difference between shooting digital, where you could just shoot, and you have 16 chances to get this shot. And then you have to change that role. And even the beauty of going, I'm relying purely on my experience and my technical know-how of being able to say, based upon my skills as a photographer, I know that my aperture, my focus was right, but I won't know until I get in the dark room and I develop it.
Well, it takes away the shotgun effect. There is
But some of the best pictures have been done just like shot.
Shoot. Yes.
One of my favorite pictures that my wife has ever taken, we were together in Paris. It was our first time, and she was walking literally from Notre Dame to the Eiffel Tower. And she passes through the Tuileries Gardens, which is on the backside of the Louvre. And there's 5 fountains, but there's one right in the middle. And there's kind of that DG dust dirt kind of everywhere. And there was this kid, she was watching this little girl play with like a boat in the fountain. And then her brother was off to the side. And all of a sudden this gust of wind picked up. And he, for no reason other than just zero inhibitions, decided to just break into a full dead sprint into the wind. And he's this scrawny little perfect French kid with glasses. And she goes, oh shit, and shoots from the hip and then brings it up to her eye, focuses as much as she can, and clicks. And the moment was already gone. And she looks back and she goes, wasn't it? And she clicks back one more to the left.
Yeah.
And there, kind of blurry, is this picture of this kid with arms akimbo, perfectly silhouetted against this dust cloud. And it's perfect, even though technically it's not right.
And yes, well, that's the thing, right? Because, we strive so much for perfection, and the beauty is in the imperfection.
100%. We actually, I realized, or I learned that a violin, one of the reasons why it's one of the most beautiful instruments is because it's, the way that it's made, the intonation is slightly out of tune with itself, which is why you'll never see two violins. You'll see three, but you'll never see two, because if you had two playing, you would hear both of them playing the same note. It's not going to be perfect.
You hear the difference.
You would hear the difference. You either hear a solo violin or three or more. And typically it's going to be two violins and a viola, because that will actually mask that. Or a quartet is even more popular, two violins, a viola, and a cello, so that it gives it that somehow the imperfections beautifully harmonize with each other. All of them being slightly imperfect is actually what gives it that beautiful sound, that chorus effect almost. So I look at it as, here is this new threat plus this new opportunity. And I think what's going to happen is, right now it's this very novel thing where you're like, count the fingers on the hand for, AI. I think that there are some things that, like, a film loader is no longer a job on a film set, right? You could either do one of two things: either get out of the industry or learn how to be a data manager for Red. Pivot, man.
You got to pivot.
So I think one of two things are going to happen. A lot of people that have relied on this opportunity to keep them in the industry are either going to find other things to do, they're going to pivot, or they're going to just get out of the industry altogether. What I have to realize for me is that this industry owes me nothing. Absolutely nothing. If tomorrow they go, you know what? You're done.
You're done.
I'd be like, hell of a ride. What can I complain about? I've had a stupid run.
That is a different way of looking at it, though. I am very similar about that. And I say to my husband all the time, there will come a day, possibly, where the industry says, thank you so much.
Thank you for your service.
And I will go, God, that was wonderful.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next?
What do we do now? Because my life is not this industry. This industry is a part of my life, but my life is so much greater than this industry. And the possibility for joy and life experience is so much greater than this industry. Those possibilities are inside the industry as well. But I feel so desperately sorry for people that get angry when they slow down working or they stop working, instead of looking at it very nostalgically and go, okay, cool, life is long, what's next?
But also, this is what's funny. My friend and I, we have this phrase: he is life is long, I'm life is short. Right? And so I think there's balance to be found. There's sometimes where I go, life is long, we need to make sure that we're preparing for that. And also, life is short, let's get on a plane, let's go to Paris.
Yeah.
So to me, it is striking the balance between those two things and realizing that this thing that I'm doing can't be all of it. I got the wonderful opportunity to play Indiana Jones. And we shot for 3 years, almost to the day. We started right before my birthday and we ended right before my birthday, 3 years apart. And I always want to think that the next job that I have, I'm like, okay, this one I'm ready for. This one I'm prepared for. And man, I showed up and I'm like, I am woefully unprepared. And so I did something. I always like to try. Somebody asked me, like, what's your process? I'm like, anything that I do consistently for every character, every job is purely out of superstition. I'll put my socks on a certain way or whatever. But I try to not bring my process into that thing. I try to bring my thing into that process. So this was something I was like, let's try something new. What have we never done before? It's like, I've never like really just dived into a character, and especially like we needed to be 1981 Harrison Ford. And so it's, what does that look like for, it's not like I walk around doing these impressions.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have no idea if I can do this. And I had not even considered myself for the role. Tom Keegan, who was a performance director, came to me and said, we'd never worked together before. And he called me and he goes, I like you for this role. And I'm like, are they looking for Harrison Ford? And he says, they are. They need bang on Harrison Ford. And I said, I'm going to give you 2 names, and one of them is going to solve your problem. And he goes, okay, cool. Thank you. I like you for this role, and I think you should try.
But how interesting that you were able in that moment to take your ego out of it and go, oh, then you don't want me. You want one of these 2 people because I know they can do it. I don't want you to be disappointed in me if you hire me.
You're half right. I think that there is, first of all, if I am the solution to the problem, I will put myself forth and champion my own cause faster than anybody. If I'm not, let me get out of the way. And I do believe there is, half of that is true, because part of me goes, no ego. Let's be not a problem solver, but a solution provider that goes, you really should call one of these 2 guys because they're really going to be good at this, because I don't think that I can do this. The other half is the ego that says, are you afraid to fail? And that's why, right? So it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. And I think Tom saw through that and he goes, I think that you can do this. And I said, I tell you what, I'll put myself on tape. If it's good, I trust you, send it on. But if it's bad, dude, do me a favor and keep this between the 2 of us. He goes, I make that promise. So I put myself on tape. He goes, I'm sending it on. I'm like, here we go. Crickets for months. And they come back and they go, we got a second scene. They would like to join us. This is in the middle of COVID, so this is all over Zoom. And he goes, we'd like to direct you for this. I was like, okay. And not in this room, but our old house. But like, I shot it in our library and I like threw myself up against the the bookcases for this fight scene. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I found, I was like, man, I kind of, there's something about this that does kind of sit, and this is what Tom said, he was like, it kind of sits naturally in your register. So I was like, okay, I suppose we could feel something that feels, it was like, oh, this is actually kind of coming through.
Yeah.
Then I get the gig, and then I got to show up on set. I'm like, oh, I have to do this for real now.
You have to do it now.
And I would wake up and I would watch Raiders, and I would get ready and I would listen to John Williams, the Raiders score. And then I would go to lunch and I would watch Temple, and I would, just listen to, and I was just in it. And then one day on set, I realized how tightly wound I was. And I popped. There was one thing that went wrong, because something always does, because we're making something that's a precarious art form. And I said, this is something that should have been figured out before now, which is just poison in the well. Just don't think that, sure, but don't say it.
Yeah.
And everybody just went, boom. You saw the room deflate.
You saw it.
And Tom goes, that isn't helpful. And I was like, fuck, you're right. So I apologized, and we wrapped, and we walked, because we're walking distance from our hotel to where we shot. And I walked back to our hotel by myself. I walked into the hotel. Tony Todd is there, and he sees me. He goes, T, let me buy you a drink. And I was like, yeah. I set my back down, and I was at like 6:30 p.m. 2:30 a.m. rolls around, and I was like, Tony, you're the best guy ever. And I took that weekend and I did a mind wipe, and I was like, maybe I'm holding onto this so tight, and if I'm holding on to it, it can't flow through me. And something that Tom said, he was like, I show up on set Monday, he looks at me, and I'm waiting for this big speech, pulling me off to the side or whatever, and chastising me for my behavior. And he looks at me, he just goes, trust that it'll be there. And I did, and it was.
That's a good leader.
It's a great leader. I learned a lot from Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I got off on that.
Most people inherently know when they've put their foot in their mouth. and you can't take it back.
I think
You
that's
know?
a learned skill. And I say that from personal experience, because whereas I thought I was standing up for the cause, or I was espousing a truth, or I was helping to show you the error of your ways, I didn't realize that nobody could hear what I was saying because because my foot was so squarely in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I now realize when I've done that, but that's only come through me doing it so many times. I'm like, what is this weird taste in my mouth? Oh, that's my foot.
Yeah, but that, to be able to grow as a person and to learn and apologize and admit you're wrong are things that most people can't do. And it holds them back from true growth.
I agree. My first step was learning to say I'm sorry without the necessitation of you now saying you're sorry.
Yeah.
And for
Or
me,
forgiving you.
yeah, that's why we don't say this to Trevor, do you forgive me? Because that's not our job. It's not our job to prompt him for that. And I don't say that to Pam. She doesn't say that to me. My thing is, I want to be the first one to apologize, and I want to not need your apology. And I've tattooed on my wrist, Meditations 2:1. And probably the most influential book that I've ever read in my entire life, and I still read it every day, is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. And have you ever gone through a friend breakup?
Yes.
Oof. Hard.
Very hard.
Dude, I'll break up with a girl, no problem. Or she can break up with me and I'll cry and listen to some sad music for a little bit and be over it. The friend breakup, I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't have the tools for this. And it was 2016. It was a really, really weird time for me because I realized how much of my entire life dynamic hinged on this one person and these group of friends.
Because you were driving out here in 2006.
Yeah, so I'm here for 10 years, and this is my whole dynamic. This is my whole life. This is my whole system. This is my whole world. And then what does it look like when that is no longer the case? Who am I as a person outside of just being a part of this? And so I find myself very quickly alienated. And Pam and I had this thing for a long time where we said, it's you and me against the world.
Yeah.
And we found ourselves in Paris. And I think that was the year that we decided to just fucking go for it. And Christmas Day, we went skiing in Switzerland. And we're like, because normally we would go on vacation with this group of friends. And it was like, okay, I don't even want to be here for that. So let's go somewhere else. And so we went.
Because you were removed from this friend group.
Yeah, and I was removed, and I was removing myself.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of column A, a little column B. It was, if this is going to be the way, then then I'm going to go this way.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and this was months later, like processing still, and I'm in Scotland at a con, and this dude comes up to me and we're hanging out in the hotel lobby and stuff, and he's a friend of one of the guests that's there, and he's a really smart kid. And he goes, I'm for some reason telling him this story. He goes, have you ever read Meditations? I'm like, I mean, yeah, I've meditated before. He goes, no.
Read Meditations.
This is a different thing. And he goes, he sends me the Amazon link. He was like, get this book. It's like $4.99. And it's this little blue book, and it's like 99 pages. And he was like, just read this. And I get home, I'm like, good God.
I've never read it.
It's a hard read.
Yeah.
It took me 18 months. And I've gone back, and again, I just constantly am referencing it. It opened up this world to where it's like, what is Stoicism? What does that actually mean? Not as a religious institution or even as a practice, but just more as a notion of tenements and ways to deal with life in a very rubber meets the road way. And so I started digging into Epictetus and Seneca and everybody else. And
you're speaking languages that I don't understand right now. Are these authors?
These are philosophers and people who have kind of fallen into this school. But the beauty of it is it all kind of started from this dude, Zeno, who was a merchant who would sell clothes, and he'd take that money and he would go buy the materials, and he would go out and there was this purple dye that was associated with royalty, and to get the purple dye, you had to actually go and get this specific shell and like smash it up. But you would take all your money, put it in the tools to go out to make this thing, and then get back into town and sell it, and then just that was your cycle.
Yeah.
So there was this time where you were floating literally all of your money.
Your money.
Storm hits, boat sinks, he barely makes it back to shore with nothing. And he has enough money somehow on him to be able to buy food, like one meal, and a book by this dude named Socrates. And he reads this and he's like, who is this guy? Where is he? Can I meet him? They're like, no, dude, that's like centuries old.
Yeah.
And he found other people that were talking about these philosophies, and they started meeting under this thing called the Stoicata, which would mean painted porch. And that's where we get the word stoic from. And so it grew from Zeno on down to like Seneca and Epictetus and all these guys. And then it started penetrating all the way up into, from beyond the proletariat into the royalty and the upper echelon. And these were tutors that were teaching the elite up to the emperor. And so Marcus Aurelius is known as one of the world's greatest leaders ever. And he starts writing. Most people think that his tutor died, and so he missed those conversations, and so he began writing. It was never called Meditations. It was never meant to be published. It was supposed to be burned with him upon his death. But he wrote to himself. And so every day he's like writing down, like, dude, remember what they said. You can't win this. And 2:1 is essentially the way that it's written is kind of like the first entry into these letters to himself. And it says, begin each day by saying to yourself, today I will meet with the busybody, the ungrateful, the deceitful, the unsocial. All of these things happen to them because of their lack of knowledge of what is good and what is evil. But I, who have seen that the nature of good is beautiful and that the bad is ugly. He starts saying, basically, the long and short of it, without to get too prosaic on it, is like, remember that you chose this.
Yeah.
You're choosing this position, and you're going to meet people that are going to piss you off, they're going to hurt you, they're going to spite you, that are just going to be ignorant. To cast judgment on them and dismiss them is not the point. They are there to make me stronger, and they're there not for me to pity them, but to realize, oh man, we are one and the same, and we are made for cooperation. We're made to do this together. And if I get angry at them and turn away, I'm the bad person. So I have this on my wrist to remind me of that.
Life is about experiences, not just good experiences. You know, you meet these people that they are on a quest to only seek joy. That's not life.
No, it's not.
It's not living life. Living life is experiencing every single emotion, every single thing that could possibly come your way, because you only get to do it once. And to turn away from the things that hurt, or the things that teach, or the things that break us would be denying yourself an actual life.
Yeah.
And you know, we're taught when we're young that there's one person out there for you. There's one soulmate. There's one person. And so when people break our hearts that we're dating, or we break their hearts, it's easy to move through it because you're like, well, that wasn't the person. But when a friend, someone that's supposed to walk next to you, decides that you no longer serve them in their journey, or vice versa, that in a way is so much harder, because it picks apart who we are as a human being.
Sure.
You know? And that is hard. It's hard to move past a friendship and not look at it as a failure of self, you know? Whereas when you move through a relationship, it's much easier to let that go.
That was the one of the many lessons I learned from that, is like, man, this is hard for me. And there's times when I have felt, especially early on, if you've ever seen Beautiful Mind, one of my favorite moments from that movie is at the very end, Russell Crowe's character is getting the Nobel Prize. And they're all celebrating him, and he's outside, and everyone's congratulating him. He's with his family, and he just looks over and he sees Paul Bettany's character, who he now understands is just a figment of his imagination, but it was his best friend. It was his college roommate. And you can see in Russell Crowe just this desire. It's like, I just want to run over there and just share this with you. Just, can I have one moment of crazy to just, everything that's bad can just disappear for a second, but I just still feel this desire to share this with you. And my relationship with social media changed in a way because I I was one of those people that thought that I needed to present myself as someone who was really, really clever or really, really caring or very witty or enlightened. And I would
the perfect version of yourself.
Perfect version of myself.
Yeah.
Look how good I am.
Yeah.
And so I would use my voice, use my platform to put that on display. As opposed to what I would come to realize I have the opportunity is, if I learned a truth or if I wanted to send a word of encouragement, who in my life could I do that to? Could I turn that post into a text? Could I turn that, story into a phone call? Because I guarantee you there's someone in my life that needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Not the 500,000 people, everyone that doesn't really know me. And I still continuously, if like someone makes really, really cool art, I want to promote that person. I want to share that. I want to quote signal boost. Or if someone says something to me, Ryan Holiday is a person that I am constantly reposting because I do believe it's like, hey, you need to hear this today. But I also send that to somebody else and go, I want you to hear this today because you are in my life. And my relationships, especially as I get older, especially once we have kids, I don't know if you've experienced this too, but it's like, man, my gates get higher, my walls get thicker.
I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
My purpose in life changed exponentially when we had our daughter. Everything became so crystal clear to me in the world. People became so easy to read.
Yeah.
And I realized that no matter what I accomplished after that moment, everything paled in comparison to the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
And to me, it's also it doesn't diminish anything that I do. Like, I gave my friend Nolan North, and we had a tumultuous relationship for a while too, because I had the version of him that I wanted him to be. And there was the version of myself that he wanted me to be. And I realized that as much as I could look at him and go, dude, you do these things. It was like, yeah, because you're doing them and I don't want you to do them. So the problem is not you. The problem is with me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that he did where I was like, you don't understand. Like, man, we're going on tour and we need to go out and we need to do these things and we need to promote and we need to be on social. And he's like, I need to be with my family. That's what I need. And if these things that you're saying I need to do will somehow feed into that, great. And at that time, Traveler was either A, not born, or B, this, and I'm sure your husband may feel this way too. It's like, yes, Traveler needed me, but Traveler really just needed mama.
Yeah.
And Speaking of, here's this dude walking in here.
Look at this gorgeous human being.
He's going to freak out because I told him who's coming over.
Hi.
Get on in here.
Hi, buddy. How are you? Say again.
I know your secret.
You know my secret?
Bo-katan.
Who I am? Yeah, on a good day.
He knows you're disguised right now.
I am disguised right now. Isn't that cool?
Dude, we're having a podcast.
I'm talking with Dad.
Do you want to come say hi or anything?
On the microphone?
Cool.
No.
Sweet.
No?
All right. How old is she now?
2 1/4. 2 1/4.
What has surprised you about the things that have come online in the last, because 2 is a big deal.
It's huge. It's huge. We also had some pretty severe health issues with our daughter.
Oof.
And
talk about perspective realigning too, man.
And they continue. They continue. And I realized that, and I turned a lot of work down in the first 2 years of her life because I needed to be there with her.
Are you still in it?
We're still in it.
Okay.
Yeah. And people told me to shield her from what was going on. And yes, it is my goal in life that when she is older, that what she is going through right now is not her story, 100%. However, I believe that my child is smart enough
Yeah, dude.
to understand what's happening. And for me not to talk her through what's happening is actually doing her a disservice.
I just want to encourage you in that. Pam and I both don't buy into this thing as like, oh, they're not aware. They're 100% aware. So they are going through it. You can't shield them from it.
No.
And who better to be able to shepherd them through that, to walk them
Yes.
through that than their parents?
Because they trust you. So when my daughter is at the hospital, just like myself, if somebody held me down and stabbed a needle in my arm and didn't tell me why, I'd be fucking petrified.
Absolutely.
Excuse my language.
No,
I'm
you're
so
fine.
sorry. So for me, when my child, as Pam shuts the door, she's like, F-bomb number 1.
It's not the worst thing that he's heard.
For me, when she is at the hospital and they are getting ready to do something to her, I tell her everything.
Oh, man.
And I say, okay, baby, right now what's going to happen is they're going to wrap you up like a burrito and we're going to hold one of your arms out and mommy is going to stand right here and daddy's going to talk to you the whole way.
Yeah.
And they're going to make your arm really, really cold. Remember, like they did this last time, it gets really, really cold because it actually makes it hurt just a little bit less.
Yeah.
And then they're going to put an IV in your arm and it's going to hurt really, really bad. And I'm so sorry, I can't take that pain away, but it's going to happen. And then it's going to be over and we will not leave you. We are right here. And I promise you this will be over soon.
Dude,
She gets it.
absolutely she gets it.
Because she looks in my eyes and she said, my mommy is here. And if I don't fully understand exactly what's happening, that's okay because she knows I'm not leaving her.
As opposed to, we were just talking about how her daughter, they've had health issues and being able, And she said, a lot of people said shield her from this, as opposed to bringing her into the conversation and letting her know what's going on, first of all. And that's the way that Traveler has always been, where it's like, hey, can I tell you what this means? Hey, can I tell you what's going on? Please.
It's like sometimes when he gets sick, like he tends to throw up. Like that's his thing, whether it's the teething or flu or anything. And every time he does it now, after he gets done, he goes, thank you, body. Because we've explained to him that it's like, this is what's happening. This is a good thing. Your body knows what it's doing instead of this scary, unknown, crazy thing. He like thanks his body every time. It's pretty magical.
What an awesome thing. Because it's also giving him ownership of his body.
Dude, why do you think his hair is long? Like,
I love it.
We cut his hair once, and because we asked him, he was like, hey, are you cool if we do this? Because I want to teach him, it is your body. You have control of your body. And if you have control over your body, then somebody else has control over theirs. And you can't control somebody else's body.
Yes.
I'm curious to see what you think about this, because I had this light bulb moment where part of the reason why I feel we have a generation of men that don't respect women is due in part to the fact that growing up, the biggest threat that my mom could give me is wait until your father gets home.
Wait until your father gets home.
Because he's the ultimate authority. And I was like, that ends with me. And there is not I don't come in and go, listen to your mother. She didn't need my help. She doesn't need me to come in and validate what she just said. I was like, I back her play. That's whatever we say to each other. It's like, I back his play. There is equanimity and equality between the two of us as parents. I serve a purpose. She serves a purpose. But there's not this seniority that happens. We also don't raise our voice, because that was the other thing that I grew up with.
We don't either.
Loudest one wins, man.
We do not. Someone said to me, I said, we don't fight in front of our daughter.
How are they going to learn?
So how are they going to learn? I said, no, you're missing the point. We have disagreements in front of our daughter.
There's a difference between fighting and arguing.
Our daughter sees the process to which we come back to each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes we disagree. We agree to disagree, but our child doesn't see us fight.
And this is the other thing that I think that can be just as damaging as the yelling is the whispering.
Yes.
And Pam and I don't whisper in front of each other. It's like we're talking in this biting language. And we'll even tell Trevor's like, man, Mom and I right now are having a really tough time.
Yeah.
Because she thinks this and I think this. And you know what's great is I know we're going to come up with a solution. But we do not fight in front of him, nor do we storm off into another room in the house and close the
No.
door. I'm like, this is the problem. I didn't know how to argue with my partner.
No, either did I. I didn't grow up. I grew up in a very loud house. We don't do the passive aggressive. We don't do those things. It is you and me against the problem,
Yeah.
not you and me
Yeah.
against each other.
Yeah.
Like we figure this out together. That's what we do. That's because I love you and you love me and we're in this together.
It's Pam and I have always had this thing where it's like, how do we get to the good? Because when the good is this good, you want to get to the good as quickly as possible. So what do we got to do? What do I need to do? Do I need to say, I'm sorry? What do we got to do to get to the good? One of the things I've realized for me, and this is a little bit more of a challenge for Pam because one of my love languages is physical touch.
Yeah, a lot of men. A lot of it's stereotypically,
Yeah.
but yes, a lot of men have physical touch as a love language.
I express and receive most in that way. So for me, it's like if I am touching you, I can't be mad at you. So it is very much of a diffusing mechanism for me. Hers are going to be definitely acts of service and quality time, right?
Quality time, just kind of across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blake,
Mine's words of encouragement.
words of encouragement,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yours is words and physical touch.
right?
Yeah.
But like if we're in the
We're
middle,
talking about the 5 love languages, people.
Yeah.
If you don't know that, read the book.
read.
Gosh.
Life changing.
But if like we're in an argument, we're talking about how we don't fight in front of Traveler, we argue in front of Traveler.
Absolutely.
And I said, just as one thing that could be just as damaging of yelling is the whispering and the quiet and going off into a separate room. That's far worse in some ways. But like if I'm angry or whatever, and you come and you touch me,
Yeah.
then that diffuses me. But what would you say is my thing for you?
That diffuses me,
Yeah.
not touch.
See?
Right? Isn't that the irony of life?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. I mean, in a weird way, it could be quality time because if you put your phone down and you really look at me and I don't know, then maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know what diffuses me. Not being angry,
Ooh.
really. Because when you're angry is when I get defensive.
Yeah.
When you're chill.
So like the model that she was given, I hit it like hit the father-in-law lottery. Like he's a mentor to me. He's incredible. He's never raised his voice in his life ever. So for me to come in and that was my ploy, that was my tactic. She had zero tools to deal with that. And she's like, holy shit, what is this?
Yeah.
So I had to realize very quickly, I'll never forget one time, she's like, you can't do that. And it wasn't like, you can't do that. It was,
That's not.
you can't do that. We have to eliminate that.
I don't respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or this is damaging me. Like,
Yeah.
you can't, it's not an option. Remove it as an option. And so I had to work to change my behavior. And this is the thing that I realized for me is that everybody wants to go, well, that's just who I am. You are who you are because you made a choice. That choice became a pattern. That pattern became behavior. Behavior became character, and character became identity.
And you continue to make the exact same choice every
Every
day.
damn time.
Every
So if I
day.
change that's the same thing about being an actor. It's like my character would never do that.
Why?
Have you ever done something that you never would do?
Yeah.
And isn't that fucking interesting if they've never done that before? Then now we have an interesting character.
Yeah.
Though this isn't my character, try it. And I resisted that as an actor too. So
Yeah, it's
director gave me
hard.
that direction.
Yeah. It's, my thing is that I grew up with the model of a father who doesn't yell, he just talks loud, and a mother who retreats in anger. And so,
Ooh.
yes. And so but is a victim
Okay.
of that. And so I grew up where I didn't tell people when I was upset. I tea kettled. I just take it all in, take it all in, take it all in, and then explode. And so what I had to learn to do was come to the table.
Yeah.
And no matter what I felt, it was valid. And I gave it a voice. And I still get quiet So my husband knows when something's wrong, I get quiet because I'm giving myself the respect and the time to learn, to figure out how to articulate exactly how I feel, because I know I need to say something. I will not retreat. I stay in it, but I get very quiet. And then I say, this is what I'm experiencing right now. This is how I feel. And I give it that power because I don't want that to kill me inside.
Yeah.
I've gone through way too many relationships and way too much pain in my life because I didn't speak up and I didn't say how I felt and I didn't think I earned or deserved respect.
I think there's also such power of just going, first of all, if your partner looks at you and our feelings are incontrovertible, you can't argue with your feeling.
God, I hate it when people say, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that way. You realize that's not an apology
No.
at all, like on any level. But for both of us to be able to go, Pam and I both to go, man, this is what I'm experiencing right now. I love the specificity of that language. I know that this will pass, hopefully, or can you help me make this pass? I'm reaching out to you for help. That's one of the things that I've done is say, hey, I really need your help right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm the same exact way. For me, I still struggle with the fact that if I'm asking for help, that's admitting failure. As opposed to I've got it all together. And I think the main thing is that, like, especially when something bothers me, I want to be the guy that's, I'm cool, man. Nothing affects me. And then it just washes off. But I realize that things really do bother me. And so then I, just like you, I tea kettle to where it's this thing that I've professed I've already admitted, nah, it didn't bother me. As opposed to being brave enough to go, man, I don't know why it's really bothering me. I wish that it didn't, but it does. That's been a challenge for me. I'm getting better at that.
And what are the steps that you're taking to get better at that?
Talking it out.
Yeah.
Is the biggest step. Being able to come to her and say, hey, can I be honest with you? This is bothering me and I don't want it to. Can you help me with this? Like just admitting it, talking it out. I look at it now as like a nightmare. And I can have a nightmare that wakes me up in a flop sweat and feels so real and will have those kind of dreams that stay with you all day.
Yeah.
But the second that I bring you in and go, Katee, you're not going to believe this, man. I had this dream and it's so scary. It's traumatizing me. And it's being chased by this purple monster that had, green teeth. And he looked like, basically, if you like dumped out jelly. And and the more I talk about it, you're looking at me like, that's what terrifies you?
Because I'm sitting there going, yeah, at some point he's going to realize there's no reason to be scared. You know what I mean?
And the beauty is that like Pam is going to sit in that with me and go, okay, how do you idiot, and eventually it's going to be me that breaks it, goes, I know how stupid this sounds. And we can laugh about it, and to be able to laugh at the monster and to be able to smile at the danger and to be able to love the fact is like, man, one of my biggest repeating nightmares I think about is I'm not paying attention at the wheel and we go over a cliff and my last words looking back at them is I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just, and obviously being able to represent is like, well, what that means is that you're failing as a father and as a husband to be able to keep your family safe and your actions or your ignorance is being able to do that. And to be able to have Pam look at me and go, you would never do that. Like that notion it's like, you would never do that. That's just not you. I think that's what your partner is partly there to do, is to be the encourager and the reminder of the best version. I love that she sees the best version of me. And if you don't have someone that sees the best version of you, you have a person who sees the worst version of you, that's a different conversation.
It's true. I was literally thinking about a dream I had last night. I don't even, running from the law because bad guys have tried to kill me and I've murdered multiple of them. And I'm hiding out in a house with my husband and my daughter, realizing that I have a choice. I can fight and they'll probably kill me. the police at this point because they're coming after me because I've murdered people just to protect my family. Or I can turn myself in and see her grow old.
Oof.
And ultimately what that dream is about is that I'm going to lose her.
Yeah.
Or that I'm not going to be there to see her grow old, that I'm going to die young, that I'm not going to get to see her. And it comes back to all of that medical insecurity that we're having with her. That is just me in my dreams, knowing that I need to talk to my husband and say, I'm really scared.
Yeah.
And because we've gotten so good at being strong, just be strong, just get through it. And my husband looked at me the other day. It was so beautiful. I'm so fucking proud of him. He said, I think I need to get some therapy because I'm not sleeping. And this is really hard.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that he had verbally said that out loud and not just tried to be strong for us. And I was so proud of him for that because it was so vulnerable, and it's so important to be vulnerable. And then as a partner to hold space for that. I hate when people say hold space because I think that it is not really understood a lot of times, or people say it and they don't mean it. But to hold space for him and just hear him and not try to fix it.
Oh, dude. What's funny is that is my struggle. And Pam is the one that I think anytime, as our midwife said this, and this is going to sound the most woo-woo thing ever, but anytime you bring in a child earthside, however that happens, and there's a lot of birth shaming that happens, right? Typically done by men. Unfortunately.
That's okay. The mom shaming is done by other moms.
Yeah, but it's and I think I don't know what that's about. From what I've observed in my experience, it is all of us. You ever watch a really shitty show and you hope everybody else is watching it just so you can at least share in it, and the fact that you're like, I know it's shitty, but please someone else validate that they've seen this too. I think that scales to certain things where it's like, please somebody else have my experience so that I'm not alone in my experience. It's validated.
Yeah. The decisions that we make, the parenting decisions that we make, we need them to be validated because it in some way, tells me that I've not made the wrong decision with my kid.
Yeah. And if someone says, oh, well, you better have an epidural because they did that and maybe they don't feel comfortable with that decision, then it at least validates their situation. Or I did this. There's a superiority about it. So anyway, all of that aside, the thing that I think our situation, hey, T or 8, please get off of her bag.
I'm just going to lay on it.
You can get up on that chair, but I do not want you on her back. Okay, dude?
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. My dogs do it. That was my Jon Favreau gift.
That was?
It was my birthday present. I was talking about it on set, saying I would never buy myself that expensive of a backpack because the thing that happens for me anyway, when I had a child, was that I stopped buying things for myself and I started buying my daughter princess dresses because that's what she wants. And so I was talking about that I could not justify this bag. I already own way too many Chanel bags that I purchased before my child was born. And my business manager has said, new
You're
rule,
done.
One comes in, one goes out. And so for my birthday, John bought me that backpack. He overheard me talking about it and he bought it for me.
Good dude, man.
And I was like, oh, I love you, man.
I never had stuff growing up. And so there's definitely this part of me that's like, now that we have means, I want some stuff.
You want stuff.
She had some stuff growing up, so they're not as important to her and they're not as tied to her identity as me. I'll never forget my first job. I worked at a dry cleaners and I went to the dry cleaners just so I could make enough money to buy something for this dance. I was going to finally go to a school dance. I asked a girl asked me to go to homecoming. Anyways, I was like, I didn't need money because my parents didn't have any. And so I worked at my first paycheck. I went to I don't even remember the store it's called, but I went and got a pair of Pepe jeans.
Oh my God.
And I wore the hell out of those jeans until they fell off of me. And that was when I put them on, I felt like I belonged.
Yeah, they represented something.
Yes. And I look at that and go, okay, there's an unhealthy connection that I can have to that. But like right now, my thing is watches. And I was a big fan of the Apple Watch, and I wore my Apple Watch. I had a brand new Apple Watch, and I started doing the whole thing where I was like getting the phantom buzz, even if I wasn't wearing it. And for me, and this is no judgment on anybody else who has one, I realized that I don't need to be that connected.
Yeah.
And I also, because I would do the watch phone check, to where you do the two tandem things.
Yeah.
And then I also needed to realize for myself that time was precious. And so that's why I have these watches, is that it reminds me that this thing on my wrist is there to measure time. It's not to dictate anything else. I have a choice in how I relate with this thing. And then also, this is an expensive thing, and it's time, because time is precious. And also, I'm borrowing these. These belong to Traveler. And he knows this. Like, he knows, like, this one that I have on right now, it's a 2018 Explorer. It's because it's the year that he was born. It's an Explorer because he's the Traveler hide. And this one's his. And if I travel, this one always stays home.
Yeah.
I'm just in weird, like, macabre, like, morbid sense if something happens to me.
I get it.
But the mother thing, just to wrap that, put a button on that thing, I realized one of the biggest takeaways that I had was that my job is to not fix her. My job is not to make it better. And that's the thing that no matter what, to any partner who, when you guys go through that, I would just encourage you, especially men, your job is not to make it better. Your job is to just be there, and that's enough. That's all you have to do. Support, love, encourage, but it's not like make it better. Don't try to make her laugh. That's not what's needed right there. There's a whole other thing that's happening. Or maybe a better way to say this would be, whatever they need you to be, then be that. And I even see like with some friends of ours, identifying the roles for a same-sex couple, identifying the roles that they have is sometimes an even bigger challenge, because you're still coming into this with, well, here's the models that I was given.
Yeah.
But who do we want to be for this kid?
Moving forward. Yeah.
That's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And we've seen it with some friends. It's like one is definitely the maternal, typical, stereotypical caregiver, and one is like, they'll be fine. It's like, you guys have these roles worked out,
figured out. That's funny.
Sometimes even better than Pam and I do.
This is such a wonderful conversation, but I want to talk about work.
Cool.
When did we first work together?
I remember the first time we met.
When was that?
Dinner.
With Carl.
Right. And I don't know if anybody else has had this situation, but this was the situation for me. There are certain people that belong in certain places. And so if you see certain people that belong in certain places, not in that place, there's simply no awareness of who that person is. So we were well into dinner. Well into dinner. And I looked at you and I said, so what do you do? Because it was just, come meet Katee. And there was not this, and I was like, oh, fuck. Because you don't belong at dinner in front of me.
Yeah.
You belong over here. And I had never made the connection. And the thing is, in some ways, I love that, because I connected with you.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with the work you had done, what I'd known you for, anything else. It was just like, man, I'm really digging this chick who's across from me, who's able to like talk to me. Because a lot of times, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, maybe your husband has too. It's like when you go out with an acquaintance, the people that you're with, your partners kind of get sidelined a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's this diagonal conversation that happens. You two talk, and like Carl and I are supposed to talk, and then the girls are supposed to talk.
Yeah.
And it was just this great ping pong roundtable conversation where we're all laughing and getting into like just real conversation.
I forgot all about dinner.
Oh man.
That's right.
We laughed so hard.
Yes.
And that was why. What was your first memory? I'm curious, because I think we've been on the same thing, but we've never worked together.
No, we never worked together. I mean,
because you had just come off of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And I was like, good for her. Maybe she should give this a go. And then like,
I think there were people who I met through Carl that I never would have met otherwise,
Sure.
that are still in my life, like Simon Pegg.
what a good one to have in your life.
You know what I mean? That you meet through someone, but I couldn't put my finger on how I knew those people. And I think you're one of them. But I was like, at some point we met at a convention.
Yeah.
I know this.
Well, I remember the time when like you and I actually hung, like the first like sit down. Okay, aside from everything else, is I think we were coming back from a con, but we were sat next to each other on the plane. And you had your two babies with you.
Yes.
And it was just furry babies.
Yes.
And it was just this, I'm the kind of guy when I get on a plane, we're by fate has placed us next to each other, but we don't have to make this a relationship.
No.
I can be in my own little thing. I was on
Yes.
the plane next to, second name drop. I got on a plane, I'm flying back from Dallas, and I'm sat next to Gene Simmons. And he knows when you immediately clock him.
Of course he does.
And I was like, well, this is unexpected. And he goes, I promise I'll behave. And I said, I kind of am hoping you don't.
Right.
And he does like his 7 minutes of stand up with me where I'm dressed like I dress. And he looks at me and goes, how long have you been in the CIA? And I went, is it that obvious, Gene? And, we get caught up in talking and stuff. And he has this water bottle and he's opening his water bottle and the cap falls and I pick it up and he's like, pass me on the back. He goes, you're a very kind, handsome, and powerful man. I think you'll do very well in prison. And I just cracked up. And I said, I'm gonna let you have your space. But I want to ask you one question. He goes, what's that? And I said, did you know in the beginning it would be this? And without hesitation, he goes, absolutely. And that is a running theme from some people that I've seen where it's like, I know what this is supposed to look like. Tom Cruise is one of those people who's just like, I think it was Matt Matt Dillon, who tells the story is like he knew then that he was Tom Cruise. Like when they were doing The Outsiders, he knew he was going to be Tom Cruise.
Yeah. And
I think often there's some times when, speaking of work, there is this, and I'm noticing this now because I'm not transitioning, but I'm also adding to the palette this directing, and specifically directing video games. I love games. Games have been.
have you started directing in video, like actually directing?
Yeah. So there's been 2 projects that I've done, and I'm just now gearing up for what will be the biggest one, where we're shooting for like 160 days.
Wow.
Full performance capture.
So cool.
It's a lot.
God, I love motion capture.
Yeah, man.
So much fun.
And it's getting better and better and better and better and better. And the tools that are available to us are helping us really kind of get the nuanced performances that we see in television and film. But there's this whole other layer of being able to tell that story through, hey, you as the player, your decisions have agency.
Yeah.
And because I've been in that suit and on that stage enough to where I can talk to an actor who's never done it before and go, I'm never going to ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do myself.
Yeah.
We start next week. We do 3 days of tactical weapons training. And it's like, one of the reasons why I want to do that is not so much, hey, you need to look good when you're holding a weapon, but also I want to see how we build this dynamic, and I want to bring you in and let you know that you're part of a team and that we're going to do this together.
Yeah.
And our producer was like, are you going to get in there with them? I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm standing off to the sidelines. They're not going to think that I'm whatever they ask them to do, I'm going to do as well. And if I fall and I fail, great. I get to demonstrate what we look like when we fuck up.
Yeah. I wish that every production did that kind of stuff. Tactical weapons training, when
Dude.
you play a character that holds a weapon.
Or learn how to ride a horse on a Western. We spent a week on Comanche doing this stuff.
I mean, it's the things that matter. It's on, for Battlestar, they sent us away to boot camp.
Yeah, dude.
It was great. We needed to go because that was an experience that you then hold in the back of your brain. That was a similar experience to what your character went through. You can pull from it because you've been through it now.
I was listening. Judith Weston was. I've read her book, and I'm also going through her audiobook, which is amazing directing actors, and talks about on Alien. When we see everybody wake up, and they've been at cryo sleep for the last 18 months or whatever it is. No one knows what it's like to wake up out of cryo sleep for 18 months, but what is it like? And Ridley Scott was like, you're oil riggers. It's like that. Like you're waking up from a sleep and you're on an oil rig. This should be like, Stretch, who's making coffee? Let's go make some breakfast. Start spinning this up. It's being able to associate it with, like, no one's going to know what it's like to be in that world.
Yeah.
But you do know what you were like for that week in boot camp.
Yeah.
And like you said, hold that in the back of your mind going, it's just like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of, I think, sci-fi and fantasy. It's like, this is being used as a platform for it's just like this. And how can we make this relatable, this big high idea concept relatable to what we experience in everyday world?
Because at the end of the day, no matter how much an actor, I love make-believe.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing in the world. I love acting as if.
Yeah.
But my experience is so much more visceral. And that comes through if there is a piece of me that gets it.
Yeah. Has to.
And that is something that I've learned, that it's not, that doesn't make me a bad actor needing something that I can hold on to. That just makes me a better storyteller.
Dude, Meryl Streep talks about how she always gives her character a secret that only she knows. And like she was talking about Kramer versus Kramer. Somebody says, can you tell me an example? She was like, well, now I can.
Yeah.
In Kramer versus Kramer, my character never loved my husband. I'm like, holy shit, that's not extant in the text.
No.
That's not, that, and in some ways it's contradicting the script, right? Because it's what happens when these two people decide to end that, as opposed to, for her, it never really began.
But if you take that secret and you go back and you watch the movie, you see it.
Now that you have that,
Now that you
can watch
have
it through her eyes, holy shit, it's a completely different story.
Visceral, because you see it. You see it so clearly.
I've fought for so many times with directors about intention and motivation, and I'm realizing now that it doesn't matter. It's like, well, I think that this is about this. No, it's about this. And being able to, I've got a great team and our narrative director. So on a game, it's very different. It's somewhat of using film, it's somewhat using TV, and somewhat using just something completely different. Because we have our producer who is kind of like our UPM. Their job is to make sure that they're kind of overseeing everything. Then we have our narrative director who's really more like the showrunner, or I guess more like the writer creator, right? So they're gonna have influence in this. And then you have our cinematics director, who's more like a showrunner, who's kind of overseeing how he's globally holding over everything. And then you have me, who's more like an episodic director, who's coming in. I'm going to war with the army that I have, and my job is to really make sure that there's consistency among performances and that we're executing the vision of the cinematics director.
Got it.
Okay, so my job is to, if an actor comes to me and goes, I really think this is about this, I'm having to inform narrative director, who's the writer, goes, no, it's not. It's actually about this. Like, who gives a shit? What does the camera see?
Yes.
That's all that matters. Now, we need to make sure that there's consistency and that there is an understanding, a universal understanding of who this character is and the function that they serve in our story, so that we're not constantly bumping up against this with every decision. But if they go, I'll never forget Gordon Hunt, who is the director on Uncharted and at one time was the director on The Last of Us. When we were auditioning our Henrys and our Sams, this one kid comes in and there's a scene where, if you play the game or watch the show, the relationship between Henry and Joel is a very contentious one in the very beginning. And so he has this scene, and Gordon pulls this kid off to the side. He goes, what does Henry want from Joel in this scene? And the kid thought about it for a second. He goes, he wants his trust. He goes, exactly. Let's see that. And so the kid does it again, different take on it. He's like, great, that was exactly what we were looking for. And he leaves, and Gordon's kind of standing off the side. And I walked up to Gordon. I said, man, I disagree. Gordon looks at me and goes, Emmy Award-winning director. And he goes, what? I said, I don't think he wants his trust. I think he wants his respect. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, well, you said he wants his trust. He goes, no, I didn't say that. He did. I didn't care what he said. He could have said ice cream. I just needed him to make a choice.
You needed him to know. He has to know.
He has to know. Whatever it is doesn't matter. And there's so many times where there was another example of a director who needed this moment of the hero making a decision, and his inadequacy, but he just didn't get that shot. And so the editor goes, I may have something. And so he played it back, and he played back this daily that showed everything of the footage of the scene that the director had shot, cut in with this one shot of the actor who was just, you see him kind of like mulling over and carefully considering. And he was like, that's exactly what I need. Where'd you get that? He goes, in between setups, I just happened to be rolling while the actor was working out his lines. It's like, that's all you needed.
He was searching.
That was him searching. And it's real. So to me, it's like, I don't have to make sure that the actor and I are lined up in their vision, nor as an actor do I really need to be lined up or convince the director that they're wrong. Just, what does camera see?
What does the camera see?
Doesn't matter.
Eddie almost told me the most
what
important.
A good guy.
What an amazing man.
Holy shit.
He said, everyone tries to make this so difficult. And this is what I've always thought too. So I was like, I'm so happy that, I felt so validated. But he was talking, in this particular moment, he was talking about directing. He goes, you can direct. You should direct, Katee. And I was like, I don't know if I want to direct. I don't know how to do it. And he goes, yeah, you do. Put the camera where the story is.
Damn.
That's all you need to do. What's the story?
What's the story?
In this scene? And put the camera there. Make sure the camera sees it. That's it. You don't need to come up with these amazing shots and the cinematography, this, and you don't need to know the lens. Someone can help you figure out the lens. Put the camera where the story is.
David Fincher said, filmmaking is this. It's the expansion and compression of time. It's making the boring shit interesting. We slow down to focus on this moment. We speed up to get through this moment. He goes, that's all it is, expansion and compression of time. He says, all directing is this. Here's what's at stake in the scene, and here's what I need for camera. He said that, he goes, I'll let actors do 10 takes. And he's famous for this, about, he was like, oh, David Fincher does so many takes. And it's like, and we worked together, and we always sat across from each other at lunch. And at the end of it, like 2 weeks in, I was like, I think I got you figured out. He goes, what's that? And I said, why you do so many takes? And he kind of folded his arms. I was like, I'm waiting your answer.
Yes.
And I said, you love to shoot? He goes, I love to shoot. I love to shoot. He goes, I have one enemy, and that's the sun. I'm fighting the sun, and that's it. You got an idea? Guy from Crass, he has an idea? Can I shoot it?
Yeah.
I don't care. Just let me shoot. I want to shoot. I want to shoot. I want to shoot. So he goes, watching an actor, he goes, we're shooting these 10 takes that they're giving me, and I could use one of those. But if I let them go and we strip away that, can it be about this? What if we did this? Now, can it be about this? That, speaking of Edward James Olmos, like him coming up with the origami in Blade Runner was his choice.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to disappear into the background, but he didn't want to look like he was doing nothing. So he created this thing that is fucking iconic. Not only for the character, but for that IP. You look at Blade Runner, it carries over into the new one to where it's like, here's the crane.
Yeah.
That is, to me, and it's the last shot of the movie, is the crane. It's like that small choice, Harrison Ford in Empire Strikes Back. You got to think, and this is my thing, is like, if ever I want to ad lib, if I want to go off script, because before my intuition was always like, if I have a problem with the script, I want to change the line. And I had a writer tell me one time, he's like, hey man, I don't want to hear your ideas until you sat down to a blank white page and a blinking cursor and written the words fade in. I'm like, harsh but true.
Yeah.
And I think about Harrison Ford on the set of Empire Strikes Back, and they're lowering him down into the carbonite, and they've done this setup so many times, and Harrison Ford goes, hey, George, I'm going to try one. And he's like, okay. And you got to get, again, shooting film. You got to reload those mags. You got to go back to one. You got to reset everything up. We're in this setup. And Carrie goes, I love you. And he goes, I know. That is one of the most iconic lines in Star Wars.
That's my coffee mug.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
That's an ad lib.
Yeah.
So if it's not that, check the gate, move on. We've got it. But if you have that in you,
Yeah.
Be brave enough to step up and go, I want to try something.
Yeah.
That's all I try to do.
I could literally, we could do an 8-hour podcast. And I feel like at some point we should. We should just sit down and continue. But I got to catch a plane.
You got to get your plane, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Muckbag. No, I'm kidding. The Mailsack, the Hindsight episode for Troy Baker. I am so happy to have you all join me. And I'm so happy that you listened to the whole episode to get to this, because I actually think that the episode is really wonderful and probably not what you expected. I don't really know if Troy and I talked about work that much at all. We really talked about life and his personal life and his family and his son. And you know, that's the cool thing about traveling with the gear and going to someone's house is I really don't know where it's going to go. You know, I have tons of notes. I put it right in front of me. I know the questions I want to ask. And then I really just like talk and sort of see what comes up. And that's what's up. I don't know.
Still trying to make that work.
I'm still trying. I'm trying so hard. And it's just not, it's not working yet. It'll work. I know it will.
Just gotta keep it up.
Yeah, I do. That's the thing about success and failure, right? Is that you just don't quit.
Fake it till you make it.
You
Just
do. And then one
pretend that
day,
you love it, and then eventually it'll catch on.
one day, like if I love it, everyone else will love it, right?
Right.
I think that we talked about personal life. We talked about things that like I also like completely forgot. I completely forgot that he's like really good friends with my ex-boyfriend until we were like sitting there talking, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna talk about him." Cool. Okay. And last night I was listening to it with Robin, and he goes, "Are you guys talking about Carl?" And I was like, "Yeah." It just sort of went there. So that was really fun for me. I don't think I've talked about that at all in public. And I think I didn't. I, sort of like just let him talk about it and sort of went, which was great. So I'm sure people have comments about that because that's kind of funny. So next week's Hindsight might be kind of interesting.
You guys talked a lot about music too.
We talked a ton about music. Troy, I think, I don't know, I think that he would consider himself just an overall artist, actually, but I think he might actually consider himself like a musician before an actor because he's been doing it longer. He's just so talented, and he has this like wealth of knowledge. Like to listen to him talk about film and music, he's like an encyclopedia. It's really, really crazy. I find myself drawn to people as I get older that are evolving and trying to evolve and trying to grow and not get like stuck in sort of like who they think they are or who they were. And he is such an example of that. He's like constantly growing and changing and doesn't hold himself to who he was, which I really find inspiring. Did you guys, are you guys big video game guys? Did you play Last of Us?
I played Last of Us. I feel like it's one of my favorite games, yeah.
Do you like the TV show?
TV show was good. I thought it was pretty
Okay.
good. I mean, but The Last of Us, the games themselves just really affected me in a way that video games don't usually affect me. And
Really?
the second one especially, which makes me very excited for the second season.
So what was it about The Last of Us? Like what was it about that game that resonated so much with you? Because I don't, I've dabbled in games. My parents had an arcade section to a pizza parlor I grew up in. So like my parents owned a pizza parlor, and so we got free quarters because they just came back out of the machines. So I played actual like video games, but I never really got into handheld video games.
Handheld video games?
Like controller games, like a game like with a thing, like a, like right, left.
You need a big console with joysticks and
Yeah.
buttons to mash, not a tiny little thing.
Yeah, because I don't have skill. I think mashing is exactly
Oh,
my
that's
technique.
true. When I was a kid, my friend had a Street Fighter tournament for a birthday, and his
Yeah.
little sister wanted to play, and we were like, "Fine, you can play." And she just button mashed the whole time and
Did she
beat
win?
all of us.
She did. That was how I played Street Fighter. I don't
Yeah.
understand what's wrong with that.
Yeah.
And that does not translate to Xbox.
No, I mean, it's not a button mash game, but it's not a button mash game. I mean, like ultimately in all these games, like when you're fighting or something like that, there are techniques, I suppose, and there's probably mountains of YouTube videos of people expertly doing it, but usually I button mash still when I'm playing the fighting
you?
part of the game. But a game like Last of Us is more about the experience of like the story of the game.
Mhm.
And I mean, the character work in it, like Troy and with Ashley Johnson and that are
Yeah.
just next level good. And it
Yeah.
is almost like an immersive film that you're watching. And then occasionally they let you punch and kick.
Well, that's the cool thing about mocap. You know, I've had the joy of doing motion capture once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
Once for sure, guys. And I was blown away by how much it was like acting on a stage. I had such a phenomenal time doing it, and I would love to do it again. And I love that Troy's directing now because like maybe he can hire me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like video games now seem like a new frontier for actors. Maybe not new. I think it's been that way for a while, but it's definitely like feels only in recent history that it's like here is an area where acting can actually be a thing.
Yeah.
Where before it was like just disembodied characters who would make grunting noises.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to the industry. It's evolved so much in the last few years that I think that even like conventions, like I go to conventions now. I mean, I've gone to conventions since 2004 when Battlestar started, and it was sort of looked down upon. It was like this, like, oh, you're doing a sci-fi convention? Oh, poor you. And I was like, you guys don't get it. Like it's something I always understood. And I don't know why I did, but I always understood that it was an extension of my work and people were enjoying it and the fans were enjoying it and I was connecting with those fans and it was only growing my fan base because people then had like an emotional connection to me having met me. And I think that's something that other people, like wildly successful people, actors, are learning, that that's part of the industry. That if you're not doing conventions, your fans are like, well, F you then. You know, like,
Yeah.
You're too good for us? Cool. Like, you
Yeah.
go over there, we'll come over here and be with the people that appreciate their fans. And that's kind of what the feeling is, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And I think that something like video games or like that medium, like voiceover work, have just become an extension of a vast, multifaceted career. Whereas before it was potentially looked down upon, you know, where now you've got huge names doing video games and things like that. And people like Troy who have become huge names because they're so proficient and
Yeah.
prevalent in voiceover.
I mean, the idea of even knowing who the actor was in a video game is a pretty new thing. And I think Last of Us probably helped push that a lot because that game's so beloved that Troy and Ashley became known names where before you had no idea who was doing the voices.
Yeah. Well, and they're phenomenal actors, and that's part of it.
Mhm.
And it translates into the
Definitely.
video game.
We do get a lot in the email of people who have met you at conventions, and they are all very, very excited to have met you. And then we did get a lot of suggestions for this segment. I don't know if you have that in front of you, but
You guys, I will never, Kenneth, I am not naming it Katee Sack. It is bad enough that I was called Little Spank in high school.
oh no.
I do not need to perpetuate this and have it called Katee Sack.
I just
I
don't
mean-
know if there's a way to make this name good, but it'll definitely be funny.
It's funny. It's funny. Chris sacking it off. I mean, kind of cute. Cassie, dear Katee. Aw, just keep it simple. Cassie, I love it. It's super classy. Probably not funny enough.
Like Dear Abby or one of those
Yeah.
things.
Jake, Sack Time or Hack the Sack. I think Sack Time is actually still kind of funny, but I think the Mailsack is still there, guys. I can't get it. Thomas says Sackway. I like that, like segue. I can't get it out of my head.
What, Mailsack or
Yeah,
Sackway?
Mailsack. See?
It's just so juvenile, but in a great way.
It is so juvenile. Oh, my love. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And the Sack with Kate. So this is the Sack with Katee. That was from Thomas as well. And we've got these names. Post Sack from Ratskin Goblins. In the Sack with... Hello.
In the
That's
Sack
kind
is
of
not bad.
cute.
Yeah.
In the Sack with Katee. You guys. Roger LaRoe.
Yeah. That could have been a name for the whole podcast, too.
God damn it. I mean, sorry, I just offended so many people. Gosh damn it. In the Sack with Katee. You guys, I feel like we found it.
That might be good. Although Doug coming up here gave us a ton
Doug.
of suggestions. So see if he
The
can beat
Sackhoff
it.
sound off. I like it. Sackhoff sounds off. I also like it. Sound off with Sackhoff. Sackoff's Mailsack. Wow. What the frack? Yeah. Cree's critiques. Cree's reads. Discuss the Starbuck. Bo's thoughts. Bo remarks. The cluster frack. Algae for thought. Doug. Kicking butt on that one. Sound off with Sackoff's not bad too, or the Sackhoff sound off and Sackoff's Mailsack. But I got to tell you, in the Sack with Katee,
Yeah.
that's it.
It's sticking out.
It's sticking out. All right,
We
I'm going to
don't
sleep
have-
on it just
Yeah.
in case. I love it. Here's some YouTube comments, you guys. 2323 Stickboy said, I came for Seth, stayed for the Canada hate. Thanks, Katee. You guys, it is turning into a thing, and I love it. And I feel like we could actually have some Blame Canada t-shirts made
I just
with
got to
like
point
the
out, too,
Sackhoff
that
show.
the moment that we started talking about Canada hate, Robin popped up in the background. I think he's here to defend Canada.
Jeff said that the moment that we started talking about Canada hate, you popped up in the background like you're here to defend Canada. He's not going to defend Canada.
He heard and he was like,
He did. His little ears were.
We should point out, too,
Where?
because I don't think we pointed out before, but Robin is from Vancouver, right?
Robin is from a little town in the interior of British Columbia, close to Banff, called Invermere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically, for those of you who don't know geography, Idaho, go straight up. Straight up into Canada.
That's generally Canada. Just go straight up. Take any point in America and just like go straight up.
But Idaho has that weird little finger that, that's
Yeah.
sort of like sandwiched
Yeah.
between,
Yeah.
what is it, Wyoming?
Montana and Washington.
Montana and Washington. Just talking about making fun of people with geography. I don't even know what's on the other side of Idaho's finger. You just go straight up into British Columbia and just keep going until you hit Invermere, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not completely Canada hate.
No, you guys, I feel like I am uniquely qualified to hate on Canada because I married a Canadian. My daughter's like half Canadian. I've worked in Canada so much, the border agents think I'm Canadian. People just think I'm Canadian. So this is part of why I have so much hate, because I actually have so much pride. And it's a weird thing to say now, in being an American, or I used to. I still do. I'm proud to be American. I'm very proud to be American. We are blessed to be in this country.
The hate comes from love.
It does. The hate comes from love. It's like you pulling the pigtails of the girl on the playground. Canada is my girl on the
So
playground.
you're flirting with Canada.
I am flirting with Canada. I am. And ultimately, I married Canada.
There
I've
you
had
go.
sex with Canada.
There you go.
It's true. It's true. And then Arthur Wigglesby, I like it, says, damn, Canada's ducking and dodging live rounds constantly. Keep them on your toes, Katee. This comment actually made me laugh out loud when I read it. I love the fact that Canada's ducking and dodging live rounds. It's just like... And like their two military people are like, we can help you.
They're not used to bullets flying there.
They're not.
Yeah.
Canada's like Switzerland. Canada and New Zealand are like, they each have 5 members in their military. And they're just sort of, because I'm making fun of everyone now.
You only make fun of the countries, though, that don't have a strong military.
It's true. No, I dated a Kiwi, and every time you see a plane fly over, he used to say, or his son used to say, that's New Zealand's military right there. And it was just a joke. So it's not like it's not just me. All right. So Leaf says, is it that hard emotionally on actors, Katee? How and why do you cope and keep going? Thanks for sharing. Yeah, it really is that hard on actors. I think that it's fun to rag on actors now. I think it's fun to make fun of actors. Like, Trisha's episode got a lot of hate as well in the comments and the shorts that we put together, and people like, oh, boo-hoo, your hair was falling out. Like, yeah, her fucking hair was falling out, assholes. Yeah. You don't go to work and have them bleach your hair every 10 days so much that your hair falls out of your head and then have to do it for 6 years. And that is it's scarring. It's frustrating. It would be hard for anyone to do that. And, I'm not saying we're incredibly blessed. And I have never met an actor that doesn't feel that they're incredibly blessed to be able to do what we do. We get to live our dreams daily and go to work and play make-believe. That is not lost on anyone. But you also can't use that as the means to discredit how hard it is, and that work sucks for everybody some days, and that there are aspects of the job that are hard and painful and emotionally scarring and all of these things just because we're blessed to get to go to work and do something. That's just ignorant.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember that it is a job. Other people have jobs that are not actors that they also love, that have their own challenges. So I think people just think because you get to be on TV and you make money, therefore you're not allowed to complain about your job. But
yeah.
Lots of people like their jobs and still complain about them. So
100%. They're not mutually exclusive, And I also think that the other misconception that gets me all the time is, people think that every actor is just loaded. It never ceases to amaze me how many people, like when I go someplace, they're like, did you take your private plane? I'm like, no, I flew coach.
Yeah.
Like, what do you know what I mean? Like, people think actors have so much money and we don't,
That's
yes,
like anything.
Are we,
There's a 1% that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to go on a rant there, guys. Bravo's review said, Seth Green is one of the most creative people in Hollywood. For like 10 years, every single time I found something else I loved, I would find that Seth was a part of the project. I love him, and I can't wait to see what else he does. Great job on the podcast. Also, it's so nice to see so many people who were huge during my formative years. I love that. Seth is wonderful. I agree with you. There are people that I have worked with that I'm in awe of their talent. Seth is one of them. Not to go back to the episode, but Troy is one of them. These people that are just massively talented and like they have so many talents. Like my talent stops at like playing make-believe. Like that's it. That's all I have. That's what I have to offer the world. Beyond that, I'm like, sorry. And so when I meet people that are that talented in so many different areas, I'm just blown away by them. Holy shit. Seth Green is 50 years old. Stan the Chan Man. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy when we all start to get older and you're like, dude.
He's staying young,
Yeah. I read a thing the other day that said that women that have children after the age of 40 have a 4 times greater chance of living to 100. So I have that going for me.
There you go.
Yeah. You know what I think it is? I think you feel needed. It gives you a purpose later in life. And that is the thing. That is the thing that that sort of like ages most people, is when they run out of purpose,
Yeah.
And I think that having children gives you, it's like you have a purpose every morning you wake up. You don't have to search for it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what your purpose in life is, go get knocked up.
Advice from Katee Sackhoff.
Yeah.
Go get knocked up.
Just be careful in the state that you do it in, because
yes.
Anyway.
Make sure you do it safely and consensually. But
yes, of course. Of course. Here's the emails. Jamie. Hey, Katee, I just listened to your Audible on Amazon, The Division. It was amazing. Are you going to do any more of these? I would love to do more. This goes back to what we were just talking about of like broadening horizons or broadening our careers and looking at different mediums to participate in. It never occurred to me to do an Audible movie or TV show or which was awesome. Like,
Is this an audiobook?
it's not an audiobook. The Division was a audio movie
Drama?
drama.
An audio drama?
Yeah.
I believe that's what
based
they're called.
on the book series, The Division,
Oh, okay.
I think.
Very cool.
Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. Rodrigo, me and my wife met you and Trisha 10 to 12 years ago at a New York Comic-Con and shared our story with you guys. We were engaged at the time. My wife is a huge BSG fan and was inspired by your love of riding to learn to ride and bought her own bike. She then posted a photo and said bike on her Match.com profile, and we bonded over it. Fast forward 15 years, we're still together with two little ones, ages 7 and 9. Congratulations. Had to do the cameo for your last Mother's Day. So thank you for inspiring her and bringing us together. We no longer have motorcycles, but our fondness for you and Trisha remain the same. So you're saying that we like brought you guys together? That's awesome. I'm like a matchmaker.
You and the motorcycles, yeah.
Me and the motorcycles. I don't ride either. You know, I understand that. It's not for lack of desire, but something shifts when you have kids. And number one, I didn't have time. The bike was literally collecting dust and I felt so bad for her. And the other thing is that, you know, maybe when I'm older and I feel like, you know, if I wasn't here anymore, that my kids would understand it. Like, you know, sort of don't want to take those risks on a daily basis anymore. Those crazy risks. Walking out of your house is a risk these days. So I feel like getting on two wheels is even more of a risk because people are crazy on the road. Jeff, in this day and age with social media so ugly at times, you navigate and speak about it with such grace. Would you mind discussing this? When ignorant comments are made, do you just ignore? Does it wear on you? What do you do for your mental health? Do you just chuckle, call them an expletive and move on? I think you sort of hit every single one of those on the head there, Jeff. I sort of do all of those things. For the most part, I'm able to just ignore it because I understand that there are those people that hide behind their keyboard and love to inflict pain on people. And so I usually just, you know, dismiss most of it. But there are times when it really gets to me. I think the times that it gets to me the most is when it's completely like made up and false. You know, when people just like start to talk shit about people on the internet and like make things up. That's when I start to get like frustrated because I believe that we all should have the right to stand up for ourselves, but it only makes it worse. So you end up having to quote unquote be the bigger person, which sucks if you're the bigger person every day, you know? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I want to respond to a lot of these comments and I don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do in a cheeky way just to, you know.
I've noticed you do respond to a lot of comments more so than I've seen other people. Which means, are you reading the comments more often?
I do read the comments. Yeah, I do read the comments. Yeah, it's a bit voyeuristic.
Does that send you into a spiral or anything?
Not as much as it used to. You know, it used to really get to me when people said really horrible, horrible things about me, especially when it's not true. And now I just sort of go, all right, dummy. You know, like there was a woman that like hate stalked me for years on social media. And of course I had to look her up and be like, who is this crazy nut job pretending to be a psychiatrist? And, you know, you block them and they keep finding you and you block them and they keep finding you. And it's crazy.
Quite literally,
and
I think.
Literally, it is quite crazy. And then you just wake up one day and you realize you hadn't thought, you know, you just let it go. Because they're nuts. Could you imagine being that nuts?
That's the only thing I can think of when I see these comments is I'm like, don't you have anything else going on in your life? Just like one other thing that you could do?
No, absolutely. And that's the thing, right? So I think at the end of the day, I try desperately to have empathy for people that are so negative and mean and crazy I know I'm throwing that word around willy-nilly, but you know, people that's my go-to move to handle it. And then mental health, I usually, if it really gets to me, I just like cry to my husband. I usually yell to Robin about it a lot.
Yeah.
I also, on my own side, find it really fun blocking and restricting people. Restricting is even more fun because then they think people are seeing their comments, but they're not. Like no one's seeing it. So they're literally screaming into a void, which I love. I think it's so funny.
It's like banishing people.
It is. And they don't know it. It's so wonderful. But I think the thing that I am becoming more and more aware of how few actors, celebrities, whatever you want to actually do their own social media. There are people, I've talked to a company about it. There are people who I thought, because their posts were so authentic, that it was them. It's not them.
Yeah.
It's someone else doing it. They might be making the content, but the person is telling them what to do. And then they're the ones posting. They're the ones doing the write-ups. They're the ones doing all of this stuff. And it's a huge industry. And I have thought about it because life is too short to be the recipient of so much negativity at times, because the negativity gets to you, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there might come a time, you know, when my money tree comes in, when I pay someone to do my social media, just because.
Hire a whole firm. Yeah.
Yeah, because it does wear on you. And you're right, Casper. I do not know one person that does not have some sort of hate on their social media. Because that's the thing, right? Like those people, like they hate seeing people that are happy, you know?
Yeah. I wonder how many people also feel like entitled to something from you. You know, like they see you online and therefore they think that, like, I see that sentiment going around a lot where it's like, because your job is to create content for them, it's almost like they think you work for them.
Yeah. Like it's my right. If you didn't want this, you shouldn't have gone into a public form of work, you know? And my argument to that is that I became an actor in 1994. Like I had a pager. Like this was not part of my job. This became a part of my job after I was already successful. You know, I got a cell phone like right before Battlestar. Like, you know what I mean? Like this was not what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe not a cell phone. I had a cell phone in like 98, but I didn't have a computer. I didn't have a computer, like a travel computer, until like way later. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You had to go to the internet cafe, buy the time, and read the hate from people, which already existed in 2001.
Which maybe would be better for your mental health. Maybe you should figure out a way to recreate that situation now.
Right? Just get rid of it all?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that be beautiful? I've thought about going to a flip phone before.
Me too.
Like back to a flip phone. Because I think the thing that gets me the most, do you guys hate the fact that if you don't respond to a message like instantaneously, people get upset with you? And it's like, I don't have my phone on me 24 hours a day. Like if someone's dead, keep calling. Like, but if it's not an emergency, like calm down.
You're pretty good about responding to text though.
Text messages.
Jinxing it, yeah.
Yeah, now my mom will be like, God dang it, I knew it. I knew you could respond fast.
Sorry, I mean, I think you take at least a day or two to respond.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've thought about putting the read thing on my text messages so people know that I've read it, and then they'll hold me accountable, because then they'll know I'm the asshole.
It's like my worst nightmare.
You are that kid. Robin just sent me this meme the other day this Instagram thing of this kid, this little boy that he's like getting like, come on, you can do it, man. You can do it. He's on a BMX bike and he's like jumping like off a fucking cliff. And everyone's like, you can do it. You can do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he fucking face plants right over the top. That is the people that turn on the red. That kid that's like, I can fucking do it.
Yeah.
He just face plants with his glasses. He's like,
yeah.
But you guys, I got to wrap this up. I got to go catch a plane.
You said that you wanted some personal news. Did you want to get into that, or?
Well, I was just about to tell you the reason we have to go is Robin and I are having a second baby.
Wow.
We've got to go do that.
That's exciting.
So more on that later.
By the time this comes out, you may have a new baby.
Yeah, we will. But that's why things are insane today.
Yeah, congratulations.
And more on that later. We'll do a whole episode about surrogacy at some point, you guys. I feel like we should. And
if people have questions, where do they go?
Go to thesackhoffshow@gmail.com. Leave your messages. Remember to like and subscribe over where you get your podcasts so you know when new episodes come out. And again, this has been amazing. You guys, we're like #1 and like on Apple for
been killing it
for, you know, film interviews. This is huge. And you guys are doing that. So I love you. Keep it coming. And I'll see you on Tuesday. See you next Tuesday. That's what's up.